Book review: A Line You Have Traced by Roisin Dunnett. Roisin Dunnett's debut novel, Line You Have Traced, is haunting, lyrical, and deeply philosophical meditation on time, identity, and resistance. Part speculative fiction, part literary tapestry, the novel unfolds across three timelines: post-World War I London, contemporary East London, and future ravaged by environmental collapse. Each of these periods is anchored by singular mysterious object. Red book that seems to transcend space and time, connecting three women across centuries who are each trying in their own ways to make sense of the decaying world, though comparisons to David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas and Emily Ain't John Mandel's Station 11 are apt. Line You Have Traced establishes its own space in the speculative literary canon, where Cloud Atlas is ambitious in structure and Station 11 weaves post-apocalyptic survival with art's enduring power. Dunnett's novel is quieter, more intimate reckoning with the idea of legacy. What we inherit, what we pass on, and how stories, memories, and small acts of love. And plot summary: Roisin Dunnett's Line You Have Traced is richly layered speculative novel weaving together the lives of three women across centuries, each confronting their place in world on the edge of collapse. Through mysterious red book that transcends time, these women, B, K, and S, are bound by their pursuit of connection, understanding, and legacy in a world increasingly marked by chaos and decay. B, London post-World War I. In the aftermath of the First World War, B, Jewish immigrant living in London's East End is quietly crafting life of purpose. She teaches, translates texts, and engages with her community amidst rising anti-Semitism and social unrest. Her life shifts dramatically when she encounters a ghostly figure during foggy walk home. Being she comes to believe is an angel, the encounter stirs something deep in B, spiritual urgency, and leading her to discover curious red book tucked among donations at her local library. The book seems to speak directly to her thoughts and experiences, echoing her questions about faith, identity, and the path forward in country teetering on the edge of fascism. As tensions escalate in her neighborhood, B becomes involved in organizing resistance. The red book becomes both source of strength and an enigma, containing references to events and people that haven't yet existed. When friend disappears under mysterious circumstances, B begins to suspect that the book and perhaps the angelic figure she saw might be something larger, something reaching across time. Hey, contemporary East London. In very different London nearly a century later, Kay navigates the complexities of queer identity, friendship, and love amid the vibrant, gritty underground scene. Nights blur into days of music, protest, and passion, yet Kay is haunted by a recurring dream of people from the future trying to contact her. One night, after an acid trip at warehouse rave, she finds strange red book in the coach room. Initially dismissing it, proper prank, she soon realizes the book contains passages that mirror fragments of her own life and references to a woman named B in 1920s London. Kay's curiosity turns to obsession. Her friends worry she's spiraling, but Kay feels she stumbled onto connection beyond logic or time. As climate protests intensify and violent crackdowns become more common, Kay begins recording her experiences in the book, unsure whether she's her way into the future or receiving message from it. The more she writes, the more she feels watched by strangers in the crowd, by reflections that don't move when she does, and by woman she keeps seeing who seems just out of reach. S, the far future. In crumbling, climate-ravaged world many years from now, S is part of a dwindling collective dedicated to preserving fragments of human knowledge and memory. Living beneath the surface of what was once London, S and her group are preparing for one final mission: desperate journey into the past using experimental temporal technology. Their goal is simple and impossible: to leave behind message that might help humanity avoid destruction that S's generation now endures. S has trained her whole life for this task. Her only personal possession is weathered red book passed down through generations of the collective, and in her entries, written in different languages with voices from the past that have guided her choices. She believes one of them, the voice named K, once lived in what they call the hinge time, critical moment when history could have shifted. Another voice, B, seems older still, yet strangely prescient. S must choose which point in time to visit, and whether to sacrifice herself for future she will never see. But as the launch window approaches, S discovers inconsistencies in the book's entries, suggesting that someone else may have traveled before her, altering the very past she hopes to reach. Interwoven threads. Dunnett's novel is not traditional time travel narrative, but something more intricate and poetic. Each chapter alternates between the women's perspectives, gradually revealing how their lives echo and influence one another. The red book serves as conduit, container for shared memory, longing, and resistance. Through it, B, K, and S question their realities and find courage to act even when the outcomes are uncertain. As the women confront personal and political upheaval in their respective eras, the novel asks, how do we shape the future? What stories do we pass on, and how do those stories shape the ones who come after us? Are we bound by our time, or can we, through language, art, and action, etch line that spans beyond the present? In the final section, S's journey converges with B's in case timelines in unexpected ways. Whether through actual time travel or the metaphysical power of the written word, the novel blurs the boundaries between past, present, and future. The climax is tender and heartbreaking as S's sacrifice becomes quiet ripple that changes everything and nothing. Themes and tone. Line you have traced is lyrical, speculative fiction at its best. It explores themes of intergenerational trauma and hope, the preservation of queer and marginalized voices, the urgency of climate action, and the haunting beauty of connection across time. With the echoes of David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas and the emotional resonance of Emily Ain't John Manville's Station 11, Dunnett's debut is deeply philosophical yet intimate, grounded in tact, detail, and radiant language. This is novel for anyone who has ever asked what legacy means in a world that feels like it's ending, and whether love, art, or memory can reach across the void. A trifold narrative of singular urgency. The novel alternates between three main protagonists. B, Jewish woman in the East End of London in the 1920s. K, queer woman immersed in London's contemporary underground rave and activist scene. And S, future-dwelling archivist living in subterranean society on the brink of extinction. Each woman is presented with a version of the same red book, and through their interactions with it, each begins to question the nature of her reality and her agency within it. B's story is perhaps the most grounded in conventional historical fiction, yet even here Dunnett gently tilts the axis of reality. B, working as teacher and translator, is building new life in London after the trauma of war and migration. She is deeply rooted in her Jewish community, which is increasingly threatened by rising fascist sentiments. One evening, she encounters an uncanny figure in the fog whom she comes to believe is an angel. This encounter and the subsequent discovery of the Red Book sets B on path of resistance, both political and metaphysical. The novel delicately balances her very real concerns, anti-Semitism, classism, community survival, with growing sense of wonder and dread. B is not mystic by nature, but the more she engages with the Red Book, the more she begins to suspect that she is part of something far beyond her comprehension. Hey, in present-day East London is all urgency and movement. Queer, angry, brilliant, and longing. Her world is one of the art collectives, queer house parties, and climate protests. Dunnett's portrayal of this scene is electric, gritty, joyful, and shot through with raw vulnerability. Kay is haunted by dreams of time travelers and visions of other women, some of whom she comes to recognize from the Red Book she finds in the Coutremet party. As her becomes more unstable both politically and personally, Kay begins to record her own experiences in the book, unsure if she's preserving them for someone else or simply trying to ground herself in a world she no longer trusts. Her relationship with her best friend, Nix, and the broader queer community around her becomes focal point for Dunnett's exploration of chosen family, mutual care, and survival against the odds. S's sections are perhaps the most speculative and least tethered to conventional narrative forms. She lives in future where the Earth's surface is uninhabitable and what remains of humanity is scattered and diminishing. S is part of a collective dedicated to preserving fragments of human history, art, literature, memories, and myths, in the hope that something of humanity will survive, even if its people do not. Their last project is an experimental leap through time, to send someone into the past with message, warning, or perhaps just presence that might alter what is to come. S has been chosen to make that journey. Her preparation is steeped in ritual, memory, and longing. She carries the Red Book, now worn and fragile, containing entries from KB and others lost to time. The question she faces, where to go and what to say, becomes the novel's central philosophical tension. Can we change the future by bearing witness to the past? Memory, myth, and resistance. One of Dunnett's most impressive achievements in line you have traced is how deftly she uses the speculative framework not as spectacle but as metaphor. Time travel here is not flashy mechanism. It is yearning. The Red Book is not piece of advanced technology. It is memory made tangible. The novel resists easy categorization. It is science fiction, yes, but it is also deeply humanistic work about stored legacy and connection. Which unites the three timelines is not plot so much as tone and theme. Each woman is grappling with the weight of her moment in history, the desire to act meaningfully, and the fear that nothing she does will matter. And yet, each chooses to resist despair in her own way. B organizes her community against fascist incursions. Kay protests against climate inaction and government oppression, even when it endangers her life. S prepares to sacrifice herself in the hope that single ripple might echo backward in time and change the course of history. None of their actions are grand in the conventional sense. They are not heroes with superpowers. They are caretakers, scribes, rebels, lovers. The novel's speculative elements are beautifully integrated into this thematic exploration. Time is not linear here, or rather it folds in on itself. The Red Book is physical manifestation of that place where voices, memories, and desires intermingle. Its entries are often fragmentary, poetic, echoing the sensory textures of each character's world. Dunnett doesn't explain how the book travels through time or whether its effects are literal or metaphorical. That ambiguity is part of the novel's strength. Like the best speculative fiction, it opens possibilities rather than closing them. Language and structure. Donnett's prose is exquisite. She has poet's ear for rhythm and image and novelist's gift for character and pacing. Each timeline has its own distinct voice and atmosphere. B's sections are measured, shadowed by dread and quiet resolve. K's are frenetic, emotional, laced with irony and passion. S's chapters are meditative, philosophical, sometimes abstract, mirroring the collapse of familiar structures in her world. The language shifts subtly between these registers without ever losing coherence. The result is a novel that feels both expansive and intimate, grounded and visionary. The structure of the novel. Its intercutting timelines, recurring motifs, and thematic resonance requires careful attention, but it never feels forced. Instead, it mimics memory and history function, nonlinear, echoing, refracted through layers of perception and desire. The Red Book acts as both anchor and bridge, drawing connections across time without the need for explanatory scaffolding. Queerness and chosen family. One of the novel's most powerful threads is its depiction of queer life, particularly in K's narrative. Dunnett does not flatten queer experience into trauma or tragedy. Instead, she offers vibrant, messy, loving portrait of queer communities as sites of resistance and joy. K's relationships with friends, lovers, and herself are complex and deeply felt. The novel doesn't idealize queer spaces, but it honors them. These are places where care is practiced, where grief is shared, where futures are imagined. Despite systemic violence and erasure, there's radical tenderness in how Dunnett writes about these spaces. K's story becomes tribute to all the queer people who have fought, danced, written, and loved in the margins of mainstream history. Her voice in the Red Book is not one of despair, but of insistence. We were here. What we owe to the future. At its heart, line you have traced is about legacy. Not in the grand historical sense, but in the quiet, intimate acts of preservation and connection. What does it mean to leave something behind? Can a single voice, single story change the course of time? What responsibility do we have to those who will come after us, especially when our present is so uncertain? Then it doesn't offer easy answers. Instead, she offers kind of radical hope. Belief that even in times of collapse, art, memory, and love matter, that book passed from hand to hand, written in the margins of time, might be enough to tether us together. That line traced in ink or in thought or in care can survive. Final thoughts. Starline you have traced stars profound and haunting debut as intellectually rigorous as it is emotionally resonant. Roisin Dunnett has crafted work that lingers, not because it shocks or dazzles, but because it listens. It listens to the voices of the past, the pulse of the present, and the silence of the future. And in that listening, it finds kind of grace. This is a novel that rewards slow reading and reflection. It is ideal for readers who speculative fiction with heart and depth. For those drawn to questions of memory, identity, and meaning, it will appeal to fans of Ursula K. Le Guin, Ollie Smith, Octavia Butler, and anyone who has ever scribbled note to future they hope might still be possible. Roisin Dunnett has not only traced line through history, she has drawn map for those of us still trying to find our way.